So what's the relationship between emotional sensitivity, dyslexia, and academic performance? Quite recently, a researcher called Dr. Sturm, or Sturm, S-T-U-R-M, and other researchers, in fact, did some research on how emotionally sensitive people with dyslexia are. Now, essentially, what they do when they do this research is they wire you up. So they wired up a load of people with dyslexia, like I'm wired up here. They wired up a load of people with dyslexia. And what they do is they put wires in your brain to recognize your brain reactions. They put sort of glasses on your eyes to recognize your eye patterns. They measure your amount of sweat. They measure your heart rate. They measure muscle tension, that kind of thing. And then what they do is they show you images or they read stories that may have an emotional impact on you. Different research used different subjects, obviously, but at the very least, in Dr. Sturm or Dr. Sturm's research, there was about 32 dyslexic subjects and 22 non-dyslexic subjects. So overall, about 54, 55 subjects that they checked. It turned out that those with dyslexia had higher, and in fact noticeably higher, emotional reactivity to emotional stimuli than people who didn't have dyslexia. Now, no one quite knows why this was, or why this is. It could be because there is something about being dyslexic that gives you greater emotional reactivity. It might be, on the other hand, because, let's be honest, those people with dyslexia have experienced greater emotional difficulties growing up in general. I mean, I know I did. School was horrible. You know, I feel sick looking back at school. So it could easily be that the reason that people with dyslexia feel emotions more is that they've been put through the ringer more. They've actually had more emotional difficulty that they've had to experience. It could be also that this emotional difficulty is one reason that people with dyslexia have been shown and theorized and demonstrated to have, as it were, some kind of emotional maturity and some kind of emotional intelligence, a sort of EQ intelligence. That is, they're able to sort of, understand other people's sensitivity. They're able to read other people and react to them quite nicely. The other side of this, having said that, is that there have been other studies done, and these studies show that people with dyslexia have lower emotional intelligence in general. Now, let me just clarify what I mean by emotional intelligence in this case. So I'm not saying people with dyslexia aren't intelligent. I'm not saying they're not emotional. I'm not saying that they can't really read other people's emotions or be sympathetic or they can't express their emotions. That's not what I'm saying. Emotional intelligence here is defined as self-awareness, having the awareness and the understanding of an emotion that you are feeling. It's defined as the ability to manage emotions, to balance your emotions, to not letting emotions, as it were, hijack your experiences. It's defined as the ability to motivate yourself and maintain hope and optimism. It's defined as the ability to handle relationships with others and how we send emotional signals to others. And finally, it's the ability to positively affirm and positively reaffirm and positively rephrase difficult situations. So positive rephrasing, essentially. So it turns out that dyslexics have low emotional intelligence in that respect. They can't handle their emotions. It's difficult to understand what their emotions are, and it's difficult to manage their emotions. This fits perfectly well with what we already know about dyslexia, that is, the problems of what we call executive function. And executive function often includes emotional regulation. So we know that this is almost certainly very true about people with dyslexia. So you may feel things really severely, but regulating that is quite hard. We also know that academic performance is directly related to your ability to regulate your emotions. So for instance, if you're in a stressful situation or if you have to face some difficulty, can you regulate your emotions? If you find it difficult, it's also harder to progress academically because a lot of academia is about regulating your emotions. Being faced with something difficult and going, oh my God, this is tricky. The inability to regulate your emotions academically is linked with higher anxiety, higher stress, and higher burnout. It's also linked to what they call academic procrastination. Now, academic procrastination is something that a lot of people have. I'm an academic. I have it. But we know that, if you like, emotional intelligence has been shown to be associated with academic outcomes. And so what we find is that people with dyslexia who have lower emotional intelligence, that is the ability to regulate their emotions, tend to have lower academic outcomes. It's really hard. It took me forever to get my qualifications. Forever. And so what we find is we find a very simple trail. People with dyslexia are really emotionally sensitive. People with dyslexia have got low ability to regulate and recognize their own emotional states. The ability to regulate and recognize your own emotional states is directly tied to your ability to get through academia. And therefore, one of the reasons people with dyslexia find academia so difficult is that they feel more, but they can handle it less. And this is a key takeaway. Dyslexics feel more emotions, but they can handle their emotions less. Now just apply this to teaching. Just apply this to the world of work. If you want to get the best out of your students or your employees, if you want to get the best out of the people you work with, the people you associate with, what you want to do is you want to become emotionally aware. You want to become aware of how people with dyslexia may find handling emotions hard. And you want to be able to help frame that. It's not hard. There are all sorts of techniques to do that. But if we don't do that, the outcomes of the people with dyslexia, I guarantee it, will be low. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it useful. To me, it's very important. It's really important that we recognize the links between feeling emotions really powerfully, between being able to handle and regulate our emotions, and the kind of academic and business outcomes that we might then have as a result of that. So please like this video and please share it. It's an important message. Thank you very much.